going on, everybody? It's your boy Pitts Sports Zone, Bowie TV, coming to you live. Listen, it's going down, all things HBCUs. And who else better to start it off with them Bowie State Bulldogs? We coming to you, Bowie State Bulldogs, total access. We got the Morgan State Bears. Listen, all HBCUs information, all HBCU news, sporting events, updates. You get it live here with Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, Comcast Channel 77. Verizon Channel 11 is going down. Don't you miss a beat.
Listen, it's only the beginning because it's early still.
And it's
we're gonna be here all day.
All day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Bowie TV, Pitt Sports Zone. It is going down tonight. We're getting you inside the defensive mindset of Morgan State football as the Bears prepare for this week and a major matchup against North Carolina A&T. The defense is where games can change in an instant, and one disguise, one pressure, one forced turnover can completely shift the momentum. Tonight, we're talking preparation, defensive identity, personnel, and what it takes to get this unit ready when the lights come on. Now, who else? None other than my guy, Coach Sewell. What's going on, man?
What's up? I'm sorry. I'm good. I was folding some clothes, man, trying to get ready to pack my bag.
You're ready for that business trip?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, man, listen.
I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, always, man. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. We talked week 0 is before all the other games are slated. You get that opportunity this week to go up against North Carolina. When you talk this week, what has to be different about your defense when you go from preparation mode to actually stepping on the field?
The biggest thing is, it's your first time seeing an opponent that you not familiar with. You seeing the same color helmets on the other side for pretty much a month now, with how early we start training camp nowadays. So it'll be, I'm sure, good for our guys to be able to hit somebody else and not have coach blowing the whistle when you get close to the quarterback and those kind of things. It's an exciting opportunity for us. North Carolina A&T obviously is a program that's has a rich tradition when it comes to the HBCU space, and even going back to their days in the MEAC. So for us to start off the season with them, I don't think it's going to be a lot that needs to be done to get these guys motivated to go down there and play on Saturday.
When it comes to A&T has a familiar face, Howard University's old offensive coordinator. Do you take any solace in knowing that you've coached against them? Or just look at it again, new location, new team, pretty sure some different personnel settings.
So I don't know if he was the OC at Howard since I've been at Bowie.
Right. Okay.
I do know I'm familiar with him from when he was a player. He played for Flea, Coach Harrell, who's a good friend of mine. So I was familiar with him and the things that he did as a player. And obviously, with some of the things he did as a player and the records and the accolades he had during his time in the MEAC as a player, I'm sure he's going to bring some of that same experience and knowledge, that he had as a quarterback in this conference, and familiarity as well. I've seen what they do on offense. I can tell that he's trying to impart some of what he knows and what he did into those quarterbacks and that offense down there for sure.
When you talk first punch, everybody talks about making adjustments during the game, but how important is it for your defense to land the first punch and establish the physicality early?
I think that's super important. We have a standard and a mindset that that we believe in, and it's important that we try to impose our will early on. It's going to, but of course it's going to be that kind of chess match with first game and not really knowing who they have and them not really knowing who we have, and are they going to look like they looked late in the year last year? Are they going to look like they look excuse me, early in the year last year, or are they going to be completely different than than what we've seen on film? So it's always going to be that filling out period in the first game, but sort of like like watching a good boxing match where that first round isn't all that exciting because both boxers are just just kind of trying to see what the other one is going to do, but hopefully when that first big punch is landed or that haymaker is landed, I'm hoping that it is coming from my guys for sure.
Absolutely. And you're talking about haymakers, defensive coordinators love, pressure and patience, right? When you talk pressure, defensive coordinators love to be aggressive. How do you balance being aggressive while at the same time letting the game kind of unfold?
Again, it's just kind of having doing this for a while. Sometimes it's just about having that feel. You go into it and you just kind of really just got to feel everything.
Yeah.
Lead to the game. Kind of get a gauge on your guys and hey, are you, if the guys are too hyped and exerting a lot of emotion, you kind of want to call some things and do some things early on to get them calmed down and just to kind of get their feet up on them before you really start to throw a whole lot at them. Or if it's one of those situations where your guys are kind of dragging a little bit, you may have to call some stuff just to get them going downhill and get them going forwards, so they can feel that first impact and kind of get those jitters out of their system a little bit. So it's never a situation where, for me personally, where I go into the game saying, "Hey, this is for sure what I want to do
Right.
early on." I have some calls that I like, and but again, just trying to play to the strengths of my team overall, and definitely on that given day.
Absolutely. And the next topic I want to talk about is turnovers, right? Something that your defense um, is well documented for. Last year you guys was ranked third nationally in FCS. You talk about the interceptions, the forced fumbles, just your takeaways and the pressure in general. When it comes to the creating turnovers, is creating turnovers something you can actually scheme for, or is it more about putting your players in the right positions and letting them make the plays, or both?
It's a little bit of both. And I don't know if you can necessarily scheme for it. You try to draw up things that put your guys in position, and I tell guys all the time as coaches we can get them there, but at that point their athleticism and their ball skills and their instincts have to take over. You have some guys who are going to naturally find the football,
Yeah.
but you also want to balance that with guys doing their job and reading their keys and not chasing those plays, because when you're chasing big plays you can give up big plays as well. So it's kind of feast or famine with some guys. But for us, turnovers is something that we talk about a lot. Hunting the ball and punching at the ball when getting near ball carries, while also making sure we still secure the tackle. Um, you know, having guys that have the mindset of attacking the ball when it's in the air on the back end, and then once we get the ball in our hands, we're trying to turn it into big plays and points from a defensive standpoint as well. So, it's not a thing where we're satisfied with just stopping the opponent, even though that is our main objective.
Yeah.
You have to balance, making sure guys understand, hey, if you do your job and you stop the opponent, that's still, a successful play in a successful game defensively. But hey, if we're going to work hard and put that time and work in, why not go out and reward ourselves by making the big play and taking the ball away from time to time.
You know, last year, the last couple of years, man, since you've been there, every stop that you've had, actually, man, your defense have always either been known for turnovers, but also just being great. You had Elijah, then you had Eric, and this year, you're looking at Natok stepping up or Harvey. Just talk about some of the leaders that you're looking to lean on this year from a defensive perspective going into the season.
So I'm only going to talk about the returners. I'm not talking at all about anybody who
Who hasn't shown?
hasn't played for us yet, and
Yeah,
not just from a standpoint of making an improvement, but I'm not about to give a early
absolutely.
scouting report to my opponent.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
gonna have to see what numbers and what guys jump out there on Saturday. But
well, let me rephrase
obviously,
it. Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah. I like,
it's
yeah,
cool. It's cool.
yeah,
I understand what I understand the question. But
yeah,
definitely, some of the guys you mentioned with Toro, Toro Maddox and Kyle Harvey. Obviously Toro missed the entire season last year with the exception of maybe one game because of injury. So, he's our calming force. But he has actually turned into more of a fiery, emotional leader type of guy. Not emotional from the standpoint
right,
of playing emotional, but more passion.
yeah,
More passion and being a little bit more vocal than he has been in the past. Obviously, he's had guys like Eric and Elijah and Lawrence and Tolles and all those guys that were around previously that
yeah,
could kind of be the voices. He just kind of led by example, which he still does, but he's more vocal and speaks out. Both good and bad when it comes to things that are going on. Akai is the same way. Real fiery kid. Leads with his play, but also speaks up, and not just from a defensive standpoint, from a team standpoint. But one of the guys, really two of the guys that I would say that have really stepped up are our two interior guys, man, Chris Boyd and Justin Dutton. Both of those guys are preseason, I think, second team all conference.
yeah,
And they're two guys that who the potential has always been there. But I think what they've done this winter, I'm sorry, this fall, I'm getting ahead of myself. What they've done this fall, but really, I say it because it's really going back to the winter. They really stepped it up from a work ethic standpoint, and it's showing on the field. That they're going to be two guys who I think are really instrumental in our defense, really taking that next step. If they're at their best, along with some of those other guys up front, Judy and Donovan and those guys, it's gonna make it very difficult for teams to run the football. And if you become one dimensional in this game, it makes it a lot easier to defend you. And then we can kind of focus on stopping the pass if those guys are doing what they got to do up front.
no, for sure, man. And shout out to Chris, shout out to Dutton, and shout out to Jua, because Dutton definitely said something, and I talked with Um, uh, Coach Wilson on the conference call, and I was just highlighting the fact that the excitement that I've seen from the D line this year, and the excitement that they have within each other, because that was saying that it's a great feeling when he says that the defensive line is interchangeable. The young guys have really been getting at it, and that has really ignited him even more. And just talking about the leadership of Coach Font, you have some great coaches on the defensive side. When you talk preparation, just if you can share like just the measuring of minds when it comes to you guys, how you guys sharpen each other. If you could just speak on some of your coordinators and the values that they bring.
Um, so from a staff standpoint, I think we have a great mix of guys, not only from a knowledge standpoint, but from a personality standpoint. We have some guys that are very opinionated, that are very outspoken, but not in the standpoint of being disrespectful or
Right.
or trying to undermine or anything. But those guys do a really good job of calling it how they see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it works to our advantage because from on the defensive side of the ball, man, anybody that's coach knows that you're gonna have some different personalities on the defensive side of the ball. You talk about guys that who pretty much make a living from hitting people.
Yeah.
So to wanna go out and hit people every single down for 60 minutes on the day in and day out basis, you got to be wired a little different. So
Absolutely.
I think our coaches do a great job of matching the energy of our players and really setting the tone from an energy standpoint, but also being relatable and reliable for our guys. Our guys know that they can come to us for anything, and we have a good mixture of guys. For the most part, Coach Coleman and Coach O are the more laid back guys. They'll when they need to be fiery, they will be, but they can be more the calming voices in the room.
Yeah.
Coach Fauneroy is he's a super spiritual religious guy, but if you have been around him when he coached, like once he puts his coaching uniform on, he's going to turn up all day every day. And Coach Brawley is kind of a mixture of both. Sometimes he'll sit back and observe, but then he has his times where he's fiery and he's speaking up,
Yeah.
and he's getting the guys going. So I think more so even from the knowledge standpoint, obviously you have a wealth of knowledge and guys that come from different places, Arena League, FBS, D2.
Yeah.
Coach Coleman has coached before, and even since then, he was in the the training arena where he's trained dozens of NFL caliber players, and so it that instant credibility is good because when we're telling our guys something, we can always say, hey, well, this is what such and such did, or hey,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this because this guy's done it, or I've done it, or whatever the case may be, and that always gets those guys antennas up and gets them to listen a little bit more intently. um but
Absolutely.
all in all, man, I think that we have to utilize the fact that the biggest advantage I think we have from a coaching standpoint defensively is just continuity. We came here together in June 2022, and we've been together since then. So we definitely have to lean on that
Yeah.
experience, that familiarity with one another, to make sure that we are putting together the right blend of calls and players and situations and everything to get us over that hump.
Not for sure, man. I wanted to give a shout out to those in the comments. Shout out to the BSU tailgate squad. Shout out to Cole and shout out to Sojo and my guy Eugene. Thank you guys for tuning in. Coach, when you talk about how do you measure success other than the wins and losses from your defense? Do what I mean by is, would you rather have defense give up some yards but create turnovers, get off the field, or limit yards but don't create many turnovers but still win the game?
Say that. I'm sorry. Ask the question again. I got a little crossed up.
No, no, you're good. I was talking about, like, is there a process to measure the success of your defense other than, the wins or the losses? Would you rather have a defense give up some yards but create turnovers, or a defense that limits yards but doesn't create many game-changing plays?
Honestly, neither one is important. The most important thing is the scoreboard. As a young coach, man, I'll tell you, I used to run to Greg Gowens was our stat guy when I first started
Mm,
coaching as a coordinator at Bowie, and I would run to Mr. Gowens and try to figure out how many yards the other team had. I could care less about yards now. It's about
okay.
it's about how it's about stopping guys from getting in the box, because with the rules now and the style of offenses that we play on a week in and week out basis, man, stopping people from getting yards is almost impossible.
Absolutely.
You know, People are using the entire, it's no more bring everybody in tight and 3 yards in the
Mhm.
cloud of dust. Offenses are using the entire 53 yards of the field width-wise, to try to get guys in space and, get the ball into guys' hands to make people miss and, get yards here and there. We really focus on trying to get off the field on third down and trying to play good defense inside the red zone. Everything else is going to kind of take care of itself. When you put teams in a position where you can play close or ahead late in the game, then you kind of know where the ball is going and you know what they want to do
Yeah.
with the ball. Then you can really take some of those chances and make those plays. But man, 1st and 10 from the 20-yard line, you got 80 yards to defend. You can't take a whole lot of chances.
Nah, man, for sure. So before I let you go, Coach, actually, do you have a? And I've been wanting to ask this. I never asked this. Do you have a routine? Like, do you have something that you do prior to game, before a game, before you talk to the your unit, whether it's music or I know you're a Jeezy fan for
all
sure.
day, every day. I mean, that's the routine right there, man. What I try to do though, definitely if we're somewhere I'm familiar with, I try to get up and go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Try to clear my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Take a shower, listen to some Jeezy, drink me a Red Bull. I'm gonna have to probably drink the smaller Red Bulls this year because I'm going back to the booth during the games as opposed to being on the sideline. So
Oh,
yeah, that's
wow.
something.
Okay.
Yeah, so something we tried later last year, and Coach Wilson and I agreed that we're going to try to continue. That allows, and it's good. It allows me to see the game, see the whole field as opposed to kind of seeing it from that ground level view.
Yeah.
And like I said, with us having familiarity. From a coaching standpoint, I can communicate with those guys, and it's easy for them. It doesn't get lost in translation.
Right.
It's easy for me. It's easy for me to deliver a message to them, and they
Yeah.
get it right to the players. I love being on the sideline and kind of having that energy for guys to feed off of. But I also know that my main job is to make sure that we're in the right place and doing the right things and getting lined up and executing. So if me being up top is going to help that, then I'm more than happy to do it.
Nah, man. That's okay. That's gonna be a change. I'm looking forward to. I was just saying because I can't wait for Saturday, man. You didn't think I was
Yeah,
chopping it up. I'm
yeah, for
ready for
sure.
that. I'm ready for that trip to North Carolina. Very much
We
so.
appreciate you.
So not going to take too much of your time, man. Definitely appreciate you for the love. Thank you for coming on tonight. I know we've been hitting and missing, man, but best of luck this week and see you on Saturday.
Yes, sir. And it's always a pleasure to join you. And like I said, look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating afterwards. And next time we come on here, we can be talking about the victory.
Absolutely. Listen, man, y'all know what it is. Listen, y'all can't tell the excitement. I'm excited, man. Football is here, week 0. This is going to be an amazing week. I start out tomorrow at Dell State. Saturday, I'm at North Carolina A&T, but also coming to you Saturday, you'll also get coverage from Pittsburgh Zone at the Alabama A&M and Howard game. We everywhere this year, so listen, tap in, Pittsburgh Zone, Bowie TV. Enjoy the rest of your evening, your night, whatever y'all want to call it.